Welcome to World of Monsters. I'm Monster Master Arthur, and I invite you to lay down a while and listen. Because why stand if you can sit, and why sit if you can lay? Either that sounds cool, or it just makes me look old. Either way, I talked to my Monsterite friends recently, and I was asking if I should do a Venom movie review or thoughts on type video. And they said yes, it's better just release a video than nothing. And they had a point there, as I haven't had that much time to make videos. So here we go. This is not a review on the movie, as I'm not in a position, and I think you've watched enough reviews out there on the Venom movie already, but this is more of a thoughts on. Also, I was going to say, because I just haven't had that much time to watch movies as of late. And believe you me, that I have watched a good amount of movies in my time, and a wide variety of movies at that. But this is more of a thoughts on, as I haven't had that time. So if you were to ask me right after the movie, Arthur, how was the movie? I would have said, I enjoyed it. It was really fun. I liked it a lot. And saying it was enjoyable doesn't mean it's a good movie. It just means I enjoyed it. And there's a lot of movies I enjoy that are not good movies. For example, Conan the Destroyer. I enjoy that movie. All the corniness in it, I love it. It's not a great movie by any means. Now, Conan the Barbarian, that's a better movie all in all. And I do enjoy that one greatly as well. But another movie that I enjoy that is not a good movie, that is very comparable, I believe, to Venom, is Spawn. Yes, have you seen the Spawn movie, the live action movie? I really, really enjoy that movie. I really like that movie. And again, by no means is it a good movie, meaning not great script, not great directing, acting, shady here and there, right? But it's an enjoyable movie, as is Venom, I believe, largely due to the character. The supervillain or superhero, or in these two cases, the anti-hero being presented, and being a fan of the character or liking what it does, I think makes me somewhat biased candidate to do a full-out review. So this is what I feel about this movie. It's very comparable to Spawn in that it's a character with very similar attributes to it. Spawn and Venom are pretty similar with that. It'd be great to see a movie with the verses or a meeting or a team up of. Okay, that's for another time. But I do find that the movie was just as fun as Spawn, but there are some things I didn't like that I liked in, for example, Spawn more. And if you haven't watched Spawn, I really recommend it, especially for comparing with Venom, and if you're gonna like Venom. I would say with the Venom movie and what the critics and how audiences react to it will be kind of split up. And not just people that don't know Venom. I'm not saying that people that love Venom or Venom fans will enjoy this movie more. No, I'd say even they're going to be split 50-50. And people that are unaware of Venom much, then I would say also split 50-50. It's that kind of show, that kind of film. So right off the bat, what I, for example, liked more with Spawn, and I don't want to keep bringing that up, but it's so similar in my somewhat comparison here, is the darkness. I like the darkness in Venom and in Spawn, but unlike with Spawn, with Venom, they went down the route of choosing music that's more hip-hop, and it's pretty prevalent in the film, especially with the Eminem song tribute at the end of the film, which I might get a lot of hate for, but I found kind of annoying. I only heard it for the first time at the end of the movie, and then I saw a music video for it, so I see it's a big hit. That's why I'm saying people will probably get annoyed with me being annoyed with that song, but you know, it can grow on you, I could see that, but hearing it for the first time and how he words, you know, Eminem is an artist in his field, and a respectable artist, but so anyway, that aside, I liked the dark music feel they went with in the Spawn movie, and the all around kind of dark feeling. Venom had more of an action type feel. Spawn was... So overall, music-wise, I preferred what they did with the Spawn And this again is my own taste, and I know Venom has a lot of following and a lot of hip-hop and trendy following, which we are certainly not at this channel, but I myself prefer different variety of music, and I found that the music choice for the Spawn one was a bit more to the taste and feel of the movie, not trying to be trendy and modern, but rather fitting the artistic aesthetic feel that the film was trying to portray. And I think the Marilyn Manson song that's not widely played or known at the end of that film was a nice little ending to it. Okay, so now music aside, Venom is PG-13. There's no blood at all, I believe, not at least violent action blood. There is a scene where he is impaled completely through, Eddie Brock is, which is the human character, and no blood around the symbiotic blade. And it's pretty ridiculous, but whatever, it's PG-13, what can they do? Now, along those lines of finding out it's PG-13, we also found out that the movie does not feature Spider-Man because of licensing issues with Sony. We found that out long ago, and you know what? That's fine. It's fine because we already knew that. Okay, if they released the movie and we didn't know that, then we'd be like, where the hell's Spider-Man? This doesn't make sense with the plot. But we knew that, so they did what they could with it. I completely understand that and accept that. So anytime people make a video talking, you can't have Venom without Spider-Man, first of all, that's not a Venom fan, because Venom has a long line of comics and stories without Spider-Man in them. Of course, his introduction and all that had Spider-Man featured largely. But what the studio had to do, not featuring Spider-Man, hey, they had to do what they had to. They already bought the license. They own Venom. Spider-Man or not, that's fine, because they can still come up with a good story, right? But did they? I'm not sure about that. It wasn't the greatest story. It wasn't that creative, but they stuck with the kind of Venom and symbiotic alien attachment and all that. So at least they got some things kind of right. So now let's jump right into Venom and how Venom was in my opinion. Again, these are my thoughts about it. It's not any kind of review, so take it as you shall. So Venom's character, the actual symbiote's character, or the form is cool. It's a CGI fest, right? It's fully CGI. Maybe too much. Yeah, I'd say so. But the design, it was fine. It did it justice. No problem there. So if people say the design was terrible, no, it wasn't. If they say it was amazing, it was good. It was good. I like the overall design and what they did. And there's no spider kind of silhouette on him because of the lack of Spider-Man in the franchise. But it was cool. I really liked how Venom looked. I like how they made the symbiote. Sometimes the CGI didn't do it justice, but as far as seeing Venom and his face and all that, it was cool. I love the crocodile teeth they gave him. Venom looked awesome. I'll just say that. He does look awesome. But then there's this silliness to him that a lot of people critique really badly. And this is another thing that people miss out on, is Venom is kind of silly. He's a symbiote, he's a foreigner to this world, and he does talk a lot with Eddie Brock, and they communicate, and that's one of the beauties. That's why I fell in love with the Venom. That's why we have a whole playlist on this channel to Venom. It's that interesting psychological connection and diversity between Eddie Brock and Venom, or the Venom symbiote and whatever host it combines with. So there can be a bit of that silliness, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. I actually enjoyed it, but it could have been a hell of a lot better with better writing. For example, Venom saying, and this is one of the similarities in the movie to the actual character in the comic books. He states that he's also a loser to Eddie Brock, who lost his job and all this stuff, on his own planet. He's also a loser. I'm also a loser on my planet. That could have been stated better, okay? We don't have to show that Venom is intellectual or something and knows English perfectly now, because I like that they took Venom's vocabulary from what he quickly learned, but it could have been really stated and shown better, and parts like that in the movie could have had more time spent on them. And that's one of the big problems is, and that's also one thing Tom Hardy said, is that 40 minutes got cut out of the movie. When we left the movie, we felt like it was short. So that's a good thing. We actually wanted it to be longer, and it was already over 2 hours, right? But it seems they cut out a lot of stuff. So I think this movie, I'm looking forward to an extended version of it, and I think an extended version of this movie would be a great thing and could make for a completely different movie, as we've seen in the past with some movies when the uncut versions were released. So I do think a lot of important key parts in the plot, in many aspects of the movie, were cut out, but some maybe should have been cut out or just redone. So back to the writing just being straight out just bad. There's no good in-depth explanations of character connections between Venom and the symbiote, or even with his lady friend that just appears at certain crucial moments in the movie, such as when there's a big crazy action scene in the bottom of a hotel. And I like that scene. It was really cool. Venom at one point picked up one cop, or like SWAT team or something like that, and slammed him into the other officers, using him like a club and then tossing him aside. That was pretty cool. That whole scene was cool because it reminded me of what they did in Terminator 2 with the big tower scene where he's firing out of the building with his big rotating gun, and the whole helicopter scene in front of the building and all that, you know, at the night scene. That was an amazing scene, and I felt they were kind of copying that. I don't know, but it was still pretty cool in this Venom movie. Certainly not as cool as in Terminator 2. But nonetheless, what happened is she shows up, his lady friend, down there after he beats them all up. She says some weak line like, "Eddie, hospital, now." And it's funny because you laugh in the theater because it's funny that she says that, yeah, comparing to real life, but it's also funny because it's so bad. It is bad. But anyway, it moves things along. But again, the wordings are bad, and I'm not saying the actors or actresses were bad, because Tom Hardy's great. She seems to have done to the best of her ability with what they were given. It's what the script writers gave them that kind of screwed up and made it hard for them to act it out better, because they did their job. It's just the writers didn't. So she shows up there suddenly in a funny attire that didn't really fit her character or the plot at that point. And so they left. And at another point, he's battling, I think that's when he's battling Riot, the other symbiote. And she just appears in the HQ, the headquarters of that whole scientific huge lab and building where they did all these experiments and where everything started at, really. And yeah, and so she just appears there. No security, no how she got there. She just appears there in the main room of communication where you'd normally have like almost 100 employees working. So that was a bit ridiculous, and even trying to be a nice guy with the movie and following along, things like that just really stuck out. And overall, what I feel that did is it insulted us. It insulted the fans, the comic book fans, comic book readers, and us as an audience, more than any of the other things in the movie, such as bad CGI, anything else. Just how poorly it was written and how just they didn't give a crap in making this a good movie, just making it a roller coaster ride, and that's it. And by no means an emotional roller coaster. I'm just saying that from an action-packed movie kind of point of view, as it does move along, like I said, for the most part. The other problem I had kind of early on is, again, I like Tom Hardy. I like his acting a lot. I thought he'd do just fine for the movie since they had to change it from the Spider-Man universe. But again, the writing, it ruined what he could do, what he could play with. Remember, writers give the actors what they can play with and design and act out and feel. But he's supposed to be one of these top rebellious kind of journalists. Okay, rebellious kind of journalist, that doesn't mean an idiot. That still means he's analytical, he just takes bigger risks and doesn't care to get into controversy, and he showed that part. But what he mentioned, like in the elevator or something, they were talking about the Venom symbiote, and he's like, alien, like E.T. phone home, that was so stupid, and it just put down his character, not just that time, but throughout the movie. It just really simplified and dumbed down his character. I mean, in the comics, Eddie Brock, first of all, none of this is shown in the movie, had a terrible connection with his father. His father was wealthy, successful, and Eddie Brock always wanted to go up to that level. Check out my video on the psychology of Venom to learn more about that. But that's why he became a bodybuilder. That's why he became such a good journalist. He became awesome at everything he did because he wanted to impress him. He had that kind of flow in him. So when he said that line and he just puts himself down, that was just such idiotic writing and not really the character. Eddie Brock wasn't an idiot. He's actually quite a well-rounded person as far as physically, again, and intellectually, intelligently, and also by wisdom from what he has experienced to a certain degree. So again, this part of the movie, again, kind of just insulted us. It's not a very good move on anybody's part. Let me check my notes real quick to see what key points I missed out that I did want to cover with you guys. Now back to the CGI. The CGI wasn't that bad. At moments, it was. For example, when the symbiote went into the older Asian lady, or I think the younger one first, and it gave her the bladed arm, like you'd see with, again, Terminator 2 with the T-1000. But the graphics of it, the quality looked about on par with the bladed arm of the T-1000 and the T-1000 overall look. But then the other scenes with the Venom and the face and stuff, really good. They look sharp. They will look well. Where you see Eddie Brock's face in it, that's not blended to the best for my realistic perception. But overall, it's good. I was afraid that the CGI fest would really occur when he was fighting Riot, the other symbiote, as they chose as a character and the symbiote that looks so similar to Venom in that he's kind of more almost black. And there are other symbiotes they could have chosen to where you could see the difference clearly, who's who when they're fighting, especially when they're all mixing into each other. But it wasn't overall that bad. And again, I think this might be just kind of my opinion, and because I might be a little bit biased here and there. But yeah, it wasn't that bad, and it wasn't that all the time like with Transformers. You don't know which one's which anymore, right? That's where the CGI was starting to be a little bit too much and not that well addressed. And for example, you can see where it's well addressed in the movie, where you see the kind of goo, the symbiote in the lab, especially that yellow one, which would be Scream, moving about and clinging itself to the surface, which was pretty cool. Not quite like the comic. In the comic, it's more gooey, not keeping its form so much. But in those scenes, that goo looks really good. The lighting on it, the three-dimensionalism, but then in the battle scenes and when it gets a bit dark, it loses the quality. And again, there's so much filtering in the movie. There's so many CGI and like kind of bloom effects and darkness, too much camera effects going on that also cheapen the movie. She-Venom did appear. Brock's lady being assimilated with the Venom symbiote, that was pretty cool, and she looked totally awesome, and I think a lot of people kind of agree with it, and very much similar to what you'd see in the comic book. So that was cool. That whole scene, again, her as an actress, good, him as an actor, good, but they weren't given the right fuel in this movie. They were given the motivation, but just not the right directions and lines, and even directing. One of the other parts where I started to disconnect with the movie was the ending, where they're sitting on the steps to her place, and they're talking, and the conversation's just so weird, and the camera action and her face, it was just so unnatural, and something wrong. I have to watch it again. I haven't watched it in a week. So again, my opinions might change about the movie, but right now what I remember that scene of their conversation was just, it was awful, unfortunately. And so that kind of leads us to the ending of the movie where the big reveal is made. And if you don't want to hear a spoiler, maybe stop now, keep watching in a minute or so, I don't know. But by now you probably know what the spoiler is, and that's with Carnage. And, oh, what's his name? I'm under the spotlight, so I forgot that actor's name that is going to play Carnage, maybe going to play Carnage. What's his name? It's not Woody Allen. Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson? Yeah, so I'll put his picture here anyway. And when I saw his face, honestly, I was excited. It was really cool because Carnage, his character's not that young. And so Woody's kind of a little bit aged face, And his quality acting and the way he can act somebody crazy like that, oh, that was so awesome, with one big, cringy, terrible part to his makeup design, or costume design, or design, and that was the hair. They chose, okay, he's supposed to, that's how you knew it's Carnage, by the way, or the character Cletus. I believe his name is Cletus in the comics Carnage, the guy that merges with the offspring symbiote of Venom. Cletus, I believe. So they gave him that curly red hair, and it looks so fake, so ridiculous. And he's in prison, so he wouldn't have fake or colored hair, but that's what he looked like. And they just wanted to make it so obvious that it's him. So I tone it down. I hope once that movie is released with him that they do change that hair, because it looked ridiculous on him. It looked like cheap clown hair you'd throw on somebody. Actually, not cheap. You know, the hair itself looked, you know what? Yeah, the hair really ruined it and made it look like a kid's superhero villain, you know, the effects. It looked like the older Batman movies. But that aside, I don't know how you guys feel. Let me know how you feel seeing him being the actor for Carnage, because I know people brought up all sorts of names, but I want to hear your thoughts. But I myself, I didn't care much who's going to play him, as long as it's going to be good. I didn't have any stakes in that as much as I did in Venom. Venom's my interest more. But I'm certainly excited to seeing him and his interaction with Eddie Brock. Seriously, that made me smile at the end of the film and forget a lot of the crappiness that happened within that I wish didn't. So overall, in conclusion, once again, I compare this movie to Spawn, as they both are bad, but they're about a character that is just awesome, that you can't make a terrible movie about because it's such a cool character. And that's Venom in this case, but it's not a good movie like, for example, what we also brought up, Terminator 2, as that was a great movie, great characters and such. And there were enough similarities to the comic book, and I didn't mind that they had to change around the story, because I went in already knowing that. I already heard that Spider-Man can't be in it. So why would the whole missing Spider-Man upset me? No, it doesn't. And if you read the comic books, you will realize that Venom developed his own following for reasons that are just the amalgamation that makes his cool character. Would I say that the movie is so bad that it's good? I'd say it's on the brink of that. I'd say for some people, sure. But for me, it's a little bit more than that. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the character. I enjoyed Tom Hardy. It's awesome. At least they got Tom Hardy and everything. The music, I'm not for that. The bad scripting, the bad lines, no. But I don't know, were they as bad as in Spawn? And looking at the evil, the bad guy in Spawn, which is so cliche.
In Southeast Asia last week, Director Wynn has been meeting with several world...
Heat 16. Makes the Ebola virus look like a skin rash. Now we have the only vaccine.
Was there ever any doubt?
Never. Soon the whole world will be at my command.
I think the bad guy was actually better and more realistic in Venom. So I think there are better parts. Okay, comparing those back to those two films, I think there are better parts in Venom than Spawn, especially CGI, right? And it was a higher budget movie, but better things in Spawn than Venom. I don't know if it's 50-50, whatever. And by the way, any of the Violator Clowns jokes in the movie were funnier than any of Venom's.
What an adorable little girl. Oh, look at her. Can I keep her?
Hey.
Oh, of course not. No pets allowed. Come on, my barbecue friend. Pretty soon you're gonna get here in funny places, and you're gonna start thinking about girls.
Did, like, Satan send you guys?
How come God hogs up all the good followers and me get all the retards? Yuck! I hate anchovies.
Venom was overall enjoyable to me. I'd love to see it again, whether it's because it's so bad it's good. I don't know what it is. There's something that pulls me there. It must be that symbiotic connection. I do want to check it out again. And I do want to see, number one, an extended version of it. Some kind of edited version of it, an adult, I don't know, R-rated version of it. I think that could save this movie in the box office later. It'll be one of those that doesn't, even though it's doing great in the cinemas, I think it can do even better in the box office if they and I mean upon release, if they show all the details. I do want to see the details. I do want a good movie. So let me know what you guys think. I know this is a lot longer than I was expecting. Who knows if anybody's going to watch it, because sure as hell YouTube's not going to recommend this video, as we're just not trendy enough, so screw them. And also, I'm glad that Carnage was not in the first movie. We need a warm-up movie first before we get to the big stuff. So Carnage in the next one, let me know what you think about Carnage. Let me know about what you think about everything talked about and your whole opinions of it. I want to hear if you loved it, hated it, because I know it's one of those. So until next time, stay monstrous, my friends, and nothing. I just wanted to kind of shout out that every Saturday we do a little monster cast. So it's live and you can always join that. See ya. And I need to stand up before I can't stand up. Remind you of any brilliant line in the movie?